Five Points Media Center in the heart of Denver, Colorado. This is Studio 12.
Good evening, I'm Bazi, Kanani, and I'm so pleased to welcome you to Studio 12. This is our very first show, a newly revamped Studio 12, produced in a different way with a different look, but with all the same great storytelling that PBS12 has always been known for. Bobby Springer, our new president and general manager, is here with more about Studio 12.
Studio 12 in 2025 is very different from the Studio 12 that was before, but the spirit is the same. How do we bring people to the table? How do we help them understand better what's going on around Colorado? And how do we help them come away with both the positives, the things that are challenging, bring some joy, bring you some things to think about? And that's what the new Studio 12 is all about. You think about all the amazing things that the station has done in its past, and we thought, how does this generation, how can the stewards who are currently working at PBS12, what can we create that would really be great for our audience, and what need can we fill in the community? When people ask me, I like to say, we'll always know who got shot, if it's gonna snow, and if the Broncos won. Those stories are being told every single day. There's so many good journalists, and this is a really great town for journalism. There's so many people who are telling that story every day, but that story is covered. So when we think about what PBS12 is trying to do, we're trying to tell those other stories. We're not trying to tell things that happen today. We're trying to give a picture of context. What does it all mean, and where is it all going? And we also want to be able to do what I call community storytelling. How do we tell the stories of individuals so we all get a better idea of who our neighbors are, who the other people who are making things happen in our community are. And the idea is, how do we all get better in the process? And it really sort of sums down to, how do we connect people? How do we make people think? And then how do we empower people? And so what we've come up with called Studio 12. And what Studio 12 does is it brings together all the amazing community storytelling, all the really thoughtful documentary and roundtable discussions that PBS 12 is known for, and it puts them all in one place. And our idea is to present you every single week, every single Tuesday at 8 p.m., with an idea of all of Colorado, like all the ups, the downs, the things that bring us joy, the things that make us think, the things that keep us up at night. How do we bring all of that to you so that you can have the information you need to make good decisions in your life? And so tonight is our first episode, and I hope that you'll enjoy it richly.
Documentaries have always been a big part of PBS 12, and it's a legacy we're proud to continue in our newest Decode documentary called Decode Water. In Decode Water, filmmakers Domínguez and Raúl Paz-Pastrana take us inside the water crisis facing the San Luis Valley in southern Colorado. It's their home, and with the water supply dwindling, the future for the region's economy and community is at risk. Here's Tom Muston, who spoke with the filmmakers and then with some local water experts.
Water, seemingly all around us, but also in increasingly short supply. To learn more about the impact of water, PBS 12 commissioned Colorado documentary filmmakers Domínguez and Raúl Paz-Pastrana to capture the experience of living and working in the San Luis Valley and how water, or the lack of it, is impacting their lives, their livelihood, and the future of the region.
It was like an organic theme to just talk about water in the valley, which is a macrocosmos of what happens everywhere else and what is happening. And I think there you can see the two forces, the main industry and trying to, make it an industry for agriculture and cattle and other animals. And then people that want to do it the old way, which is natural to the land, and how they are finding that balance. And I think the valley was very a natural place for that.
I think what's changing is there's a couple of things. I think the way that agriculture handles their irrigation system through sprinklers, that's a different innovation. It's been around for a while, but it just has different climate implications. And I think it took a while for that to be seen. And so I think now that they're really trying to find the balance between different types of irrigation for different types of crops. And also, there's another innovation to me is also just like looking at the kinds of crops that are going to survive at not only in a place where there's water scarcity, but also very high altitude. Right. So that really dictates what kinds of crops are actually what kinds of crops are able to be produced in abundance. I think we're talking about it now because climate change it's a wider effect and people are paying attention to it more. And there's in the valley there's a real sense of a connectedness to things that have been done for decades and centuries. And so I think it's looking back to the past to how we can best plan for the future in terms of water, which is like the basis of all life.
Right now, I think a lot of people have been talking about it before, it's been more amplified now, and some people are just beginning to talk about it now that didn't talk about it then. And I think it's the old saying, like, you know, this problem has been happening for a while. Some people talked then, some people didn't. And the best time was to talk then, but the second best time is to talk now.
I think it should resonate with all of us, because mostly in the sense that water is also, it's specific to a place in a lot of ways. So I mean, I think the water that's flowing behind us, you know, the folks that are the closest to it are going to want to use it first. And it's to me, thinking about water as a commodity that can be bought and sold, to me is a very foreign concept. I can't quite get my head around that. And it's almost like saying that the water that is scarce in the valley is somehow put to better use in another county. To me, that's just a very incongruous feeling to me. I think what we didn't realize was how connected caring for water is to tradition. The acequia systems have been in place for hundreds of years, and really thousands of years if we go back to indigenous traditions. So I think that was just the resilience of a method that is tried and true, that is repeated, and it does work.
Water is drying in that area, and everybody below is going to dry as well. And so they're starting to think in ways on how to use the water that's more beneficial to them and to the future. I think that trend, at least in the people we interview, is happening. And I think that hopefully will spread to even to the other county that you mentioned earlier, because, I mean, if the water goes, it goes for everybody, you know?
I think there's a lot of hope. I think there's a lot of hope just realizing that as modernity moves forward, that it's, you know, it's always helpful to be rooted in something that was here before us and that worked before us.
We're all in this together. You know, this is just a small place in Colorado, very important, but it's a very, compared to what's happening in the world, in this country and around the world. And if we don't come together as a community, locally and worldwide, we're not going to be able to tackle global warming and the scarcity of water, you know. I want people to take that when we come together, when we build bridges instead of walls, we can have a more hopeful future.
Following the documentary, PBS12 has assembled a panel of Colorado water experts for a roundtable discussion. We'll look at the issues facing our state and what we can do about it. I'm joined today by Jim Lockhead, former CEO of Denver Water and currently serving on the board of directors for the Water Foundation. Sarah Klahn, water law attorney and member of the Water Trust Board of Directors, and Tom Romero, law professor at the University of Denver and faculty director for the Interdisciplinary Research Institute for the Study of Inequality. That's a long title. Very impressive. Great to have you all with us. Thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it. So we just saw this documentary. How big an issue is this?
Water, it's probably the most important property right in the state, and the foundation of property. We don't live here. We don't have development. We don't have the ability to drink water. We don't have the ability to farm and ranch without having a right to water.
And that system is built on the past. It's built on an assumption that the future is going to look like the past, that there's going to be as much water in the future as there was in the past. And so that just means more competition.
There are things that already exist which could be used, tools that can be used by something like an acequia to try and protect their way of life and their uses.
Every snowdrop's really owned by someone, right? So it could be Denver Water or every snowflake, right? Every raindrop. And so this, as we get into the climate change issue, right? As we start getting these earlier springs, this greater runoff, as we start getting less water, it means that those that already have water rights are not going to be able to get their water rights satisfied. So we're thinking now about the scope of the problem. Right. And if we're just looking at the scope of the problem from Colorado, that's where everybody's looking to figure out how and in what ways we can get water and we can move it to other places.
I would also add that I think Douglas County has a problem. I mean, they've built an entire metropolitan ecosystem on a water supply that, for the most part, they have some renewable water, but for the most part, they are relying on groundwater that's going to disappear.
It's got to rely on partnerships, on collaboration as opposed to competition. We need to have agreements and arrangements between, for example, the West Slope and the East Slope, between Southern Colorado and Northern Colorado, between rural and urban, that will keep agriculture in production, that will preserve rural economies, that will allow cities to grow more efficiently and densely as opposed to sprawling and taking up agricultural land. And that's going to require a lot of collaborations.
Just this past week, members of the PBS12 community joined us at the C Film Center for a screening of the full documentary and debrief with the filmmakers afterwards. We thank you for the warm feedback you shared about the film at that special event, and you can see it for yourself. The Decode Water documentary airs right here on PBS12 this Thursday, April 24th at 9 p.m. Water and other critical environmental issues are taking center stage this Earth Month, and PBS12 has partnered with the Colorado Environmental Film Festival. It's an annual event that brings powerful, thought-provoking stories about our planet to the big screen. We caught up with festival director Nicole Bickford to hear about this year's festival. We also hear from our own PBS12 executive producer, Mary Latsis, about how we hand-pick the films you'll be watching here on PBS12.
Hi there, I'm Nicole Bickford. I'm the executive director of the Colorado Environmental Film Festival. We've been around nearly 20 years. We're a regional festival, so we pull from our local audiences, but we bring in issues and films that are important to people here, but apply to everywhere around the world. So we're a local festival, but with a real international impact. I think the biggest thing, and this happens amazingly every single time we're in a theater, is standing in the back of a theater that's full, the lights dim, and watching the audience and hearing their collective response. That's the impact. We want that impact every single time. That just has a profound feeling for everybody in that room. I honestly had never ever been to a film festival prior to becoming a part of the Colorado Environmental Film Festival, but I was in environmental education. I think our festival really does try to balance and bring in films that offer hope. So we want people to leave with hope and a drive and an understanding that a single decision, while it seems small, can make a big impact. So with this year's festival, there were so many great films. We featured over 60 films. One of my favorites was our opening night film, which was called Bring Them Home. And it featured a local indigenous tribe of Blackfeet people working to bring buffalo back to their native lands. And it was just a really inspiring story. It was a successful story, which definitely led to the hope piece that we want people to leave with. It resonated, especially living in Colorado here, where we used to have buffalo and bison roaming everywhere. So one of the great things about our festival is that we do have a category for filmmakers under the age of 18. We've had some great success stories with our student filmmakers over the years. Our youngest ever filmmaker that showcased was 6 years old, and he sat up on that theater on that stage in front of 200 people and answered questions like a pro. It was incredibly inspiring. And we've had a number of filmmakers, including one who had his fourth film in the festival this year, who have come back year after year. And that's the Monarchs in Motion film this year.
Enter the magical world of monarch butterflies.
Our partnership with PBS12 has been absolutely fantastic. We just finished our 8th year, going on our 9th year. I think the opportunity for us to be able to showcase these films beyond the festival weekend through a platform like PBS12 really makes a huge difference for our audiences, and audiences that maybe didn't even know we existed.
For this year's Colorado Environmental Film Festival, there were so many amazing films that we got to review in our partnership with them, and truly, I had to take a look over and really had a hard time picking the best one. At the end of the day, we had to do our final cuts, and we picked 9 incredible films that will resonate with our audience. And I think that they will really strike a chord in what they are sharing with you. So some of my favorites included one that featured Rocky Flats. It's such a historical part of Colorado here, and it was something that was really presented in such a historical way and giving a lot of history on how the issue of Rocky Flats began and how it still is an issue today. So that one's called Half-Life Memory Atomic Bomb. So look for it. I think people will really appreciate the storytelling and also the very balanced side of each part of the issue that it presents. Another one that I really loved was called Rescue.
This story is about hope, survival, and a community working to save its wild elephants.
That is a elephant sanctuary in northern Kenya that is led by women. And it's just a wonderful, heartfelt story about, how these women care for the elephants and just how it empowers them to also be a part of such a community and a support in and of itself in the work that they do. And third, I really enjoyed Green Superheroes 2030.
There was a beautiful planet called Earth. Our generation is going through a global crisis.
These young activists are so impressive. I mean, these young people are doing amazing things, helping with the environment and getting global action on their causes in place. I mean, from the ground up, these young people were super, as it says in the name, super impressive because they're superheroes. So there's a lot that we're presenting this year, and I think everyone's going to enjoy them. To catch the full lineup of all the films that we're going to be featuring for this Earth Week, go to pbs12.org/schedule. There you can also find a synopsis of each of the films. And don't forget to also follow us on Facebook and Instagram for the full lineup that we've posted there as well.
For generations, Native stories have too often gone untold, but author Tommy Orange is doing his part to change that. A Pulitzer Prize finalist and best-selling author of There and Wandering Stars, Tommy's work brings depth, honesty, and urgency to the modern Indigenous experience. A member of the Cheyenne and Arapaho tribes of Oklahoma, Tommy is reshaping the literary landscape and challenging the way America understands its own history. We sat down with Tommy while he was in Denver to talk about his path to writing, his roots, and why he feels that telling these stories matters now more than ever.
Growing up, Tommy Orange didn't see himself as a writer.
I didn't really focus in school or was not a good student in elementary, middle school, high school. Went to community college, and then I went to kind of a trade school for sound engineering.
But after struggling to find a job, he landed at a bookstore.
We didn't get much business, so I was, being paid to read in a sense, and found fiction for the first time there, and realized I wanted to not only read as much as I could, but write as much as I could. I was told, something like the Sand Creek Massacre story from my dad growing up. This was a story that we heard. And I was told another version of history at school, and that made me feel a lot of things. I have a white mother and a Native father, but I didn't know what I thought about them until I really started writing and getting serious into something like a novel that is a lot of thinking through character and story and action.
There became a breakout novel, portraying the often unseen lives of Native people in urban settings.
Native people have been living in cities since the 1950s, and There, as far as I can tell, is the only really big representation in books that I've seen that has gotten that much attention. The reception from Native people has been sort of exuberant, people really excited to be seen, and for this story that they know hasn't been told enough is being paid attention to.
His follow-up novel, Wandering Stars, published in 2024, took an unexpected turn.
I hadn't intended for there to be a historical piece. I started writing the sequel, and a year into writing it, I was in Sweden for the Swedish translation of There.
While in Sweden, a visit to a museum changed everything.
The museum curator was giving me this awkward tour where he was like, "We know we shouldn't have your stuff and we're sorry, but do you want to see it?" While I was being shown these things behind glass, I saw a newspaper clipping about Southern Cheyennes. I'm enrolled in the Cheyenne Arapaho tribes of Oklahoma, but I'm something like that. And I fell down this rabbit hole of information that led me to the origin story or the blueprint for the boarding school system. And then my tribe was sort of, at the center point. Half of the prisoners at this prison castle where the boarding school idea came from were Southern Cheyenne people. So that was a really surprising piece of information I didn't know about.
His novel, Wandering Stars, opens with the 1864 Sand Creek Massacre in Colorado. shedding light on its lasting impact in the forced assimilation of Native Americans. Tommy hopes to make sure this history is acknowledged and remembered.
After the massacre, there were celebrations in downtown Denver with people on stages holding dismembered body parts. And I think that what I want to get at here is the participation of regular people celebrating the massacre. These are regular Americans. I think this is sometimes parts of history we don't like, or we don't think about, or we tend to glance over. And I'm grateful for people who are engaging with this kind of information. And these are the people that history does not look at, but these people are actively wanting to engage with a narrative that is pretty much the opposite of the main one running in the American media and the general thing that people are talking about now, or at least that seems to be taking over slowly.
Tommy says writing is both an act of imagination and a way to confront difficult truths.
I'm a fiction writer, so part of that is imaginative leaps are required. That includes, empathy. What would it feel like? The wondering of what it would feel like to be this kind of person, to be this character in this situation. That's all imagination.
His work has earned him many high honors, including being a finalist for the 2019 Pulitzer Prize for Fiction.
When it first happened, it was very emotional and amazing, and there was a lot of awards that it was nominated for and that they're got, and that was all incredible.
Tommy wants to inspire future writers and reminds them that rejection is part of the journey.
The only story that you alone could tell is important, and to be that specific. And that comes from a place of your own personal knowing that no one else could write.
We learned that Tommy Orange is working on a third novel. He was not ready to reveal any details, but based upon the success of his previous novels, it will be a highly anticipated release. And now we turn to some of the highlights from this week's Colorado Inside Out with Kyle Dyer. It's a show that brings together local journalists, historians, and community voices to break down the week's most important stories shaping our state.
Hi, everyone. This week on Colorado Inside Out, our Insider panel discussed the push by the ACLU to keep 2 detainees in Aurora and not deport them until a proper hearing. And a judge said yes to that. Our civil rights expert led off on our conversation. Here's a look. This week, a federal judge ruled that 2 men from Venezuela detained at the detention facility in Aurora must stay there until they can have a proper court hearing. The ACLU filed a lawsuit on their behalf in hopes of blocking the Trump administration's use of the Alien Enemies Act, which calls for deporting immigrants who are accused of having criminal records or who are gang members. And the attorneys for these 2 men say they are not gang members. I will start with Tyrone because you know a lot about this case.
I do. In full disclosure, I am one of the co-chairs of the ACLU's legal panel. This really is an effort to circumvent our laws to advance this political agenda of effectuating these mass deportations. But a threat to justice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere, right? And this should not stand. And I think even the Supreme Court has said that if they're going to try to resurrect this ancient law, there needs to be some due process. And we know, just even locally, how notoriously unreliable these sort of gang affiliation mantles really are. We don't even get it right here locally with gangs that have been around for decades, like the Bloods and the Crips since the 80s. They don't want to be detected by law enforcement, so going off of things like tattoos that are oftentimes commonplace, oftentimes they're just looking at who's been around who at any given point in time. But the real fear here is that they just kind of push these things through so quickly, get these folks out of the country, and then throw their hands up and say, oh, even if we got it wrong, what are we going to do? There's nothing we can do at this point. So that's what I think we're trying to prevent.
Okay, Ed, let's talk about the Colorado Senate bill that is being considered that would prevent civil rights violations of people based on their immigration status.
Yeah, this is basically the outgrowth of the law that was passed a couple of years ago that said at that point state agencies and state patrol had limited ways that they could interact with ICE. There were restrictions on that. This extends that policy to local governments and to local police agencies. This is going to be a very controversial policy. This is one that we're already seeing an immense fight on in the Senate. It hasn't gotten to the House yet. And it's one that could have actually have been a lot more controversial, because in one of the original drafts of the bill, they considered businesses to be political subdivisions, which basically would have told business owners, you too are not allowed to interact with the federal government on this, which, blatantly unconstitutional provision that was taken out before it was introduced. We're having tons of businesses that have called our office saying, what are my rights on this? And you have to remind them that just like a private residence, a private business is sacrosanct. If ICE comes and says, we want to find somebody and get them out of there, they have to have a warrant to come in there and take care of that. So businesses have to remember they still have rights over their property, even if they do want to find a way, which I know most do, to cooperate with federal authorities.
Okay, Chris.
Well, this legislation is an example of, we've had state leaders say that we are not a sanctuary state. I think the legislation shows the attitude that perhaps we are. All for due process. I want to see due process. Unfortunately, what's going to happen is a lot of these cases are going to be tied up in the courts, maybe for decades. And so while I'm in favor of due process, I wish the people that really want to be here in this country would follow the process of having a legal status so we can know who is actually within our borders. I looked at a federal report from 2020, which is somewhat outdated. I'm sure it's changed quite a bit. Showed 94% of incarcerated non-citizens are here illegally. 94%. So while I respect the fact that we do have to give these people due process, not everyone is a criminal just because they have a tattoo, we've seen atrocities against children from non-citizens who are here illegally. I think we have to take significant action. Again, though I do favor due process, it may take some time.
Okay, all right.
I would like to think that we're a sanctuary state for due process and for justice. And in these cases where you have people like wearing funny hats or strange T-shirts, that's the sign, they are not getting due process when they are thrown in anticipation of deportation as gang members. So good for Judge Sweeney for issuing this. We're seeing similar kinds of cases popping up across the country. We're still waiting to find out what's happening to Jeanette Vizguera about her case. She's also in that GO group facility in Aurora. So this is not going to end soon. And in the meantime, what we're also hearing is that people are getting announcements they should self-deport. And so you have students who are scared to go to school. You have people who are scared to go get health care, even though hospitals are supposed to be off limits and healthcare clinics. So it's going to get worse before it gets better.
And Jeanette is the woman who has been a long-standing advocate for immigration rights.
Right. She took sanctuary in churches back in 2017. She was on the cover. She was in Time Magazine as one of the 100 People of the Year. So she's been waiting now for a month after she was popped in the parking lot of a Target where she worked.
You can find the full episode of Colorado Inside Out on PBS12.org, on the PBS Passport app, or on our YouTube channel. And you can also listen to our podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. And to stay on top of all things Colorado, we will have a new episode ready to go for you every Friday night at 8 right here on PBS 12.
Our next segment is part of Humanize Colorado, Women in the Workforce, an original series here on PBS 12 where we hear from real people sharing their raw stories in their own voices. We interviewed Barbara Brooks, a passionate advocate who's working to rewrite the script on aging. As the founder of SecondAct Women, she's building a movement to empower women in midlife to embrace their value, speak up against ageism, and thrive both personally and professionally. Here's Barbara Brooks.
I'm Barbara Brooks, 58. Proud of that chapter number, by the way. I'm originally from Colorado Springs, Colorado, a graduate of Colorado State University. And I also like to say, I'm proud to say that I was born in Orléans, France. That's the only French you're gonna get from me, to military parents. Mom, dad, and also my brother were all military. And so they retired here as Houstonians in Colorado Springs in my preschool years. So I'm a Coloradan, but born abroad. I started my career as a director of marketing of shopping centers all across the United States. Park Meadows Retail Resort being the last place that I was at as director of marketing. And so my career has taken me from marketing and public relations to, in 2011, losing that wonderful position and becoming an accidental entrepreneur. So over the last few years, prior to what I do now, which is completely different, I had a marketing and public relations agency with my business partner, Guadalupe Hurt, who I met when I was at Park Meadows. So fast forward to today, since 2018, when I myself, at 51 at the time, could not find a job, I decided to take an idea off the shelf and create a company focused on elevating women over a certain age. Now I'm a pro-age speaker. When you bring all generations together, of which there are 5 in some workplaces or 4 in most, that's of course Z, Millennial, Gen X, and boomers, and then traditionalists are above that. That would be my mom. My side way of eradicating ageism is to keep us all in the workplace. This age group of 40, 50, 60 plus is powerful in so many ways. The defining moment in my new career of being a pro-age speaker and advocate was I couldn't get a job. I was 51, only, operative word, only 51, and I couldn't get a job, and that was that 2018. Prior to me turning 50, the glorious number of 50, I was able to get 90% of the positions that I would apply for. And somehow, the world has said that humans over 50 are no longer valid. No longer do we need your services. Ageism is the last accepted ism in America today. We can make fun of it. Look at it, go to Hallmark, pick up a card. Black balloons, I used to laugh at them. My friends gave me black balloons and we laughed on my 40th. It's not acceptable. It is an ism that is affecting so many. And so now today you have women, particularly over 40, who are driving the economy through their small businesses. I believe the number is in the mid 40s. I think it's 45 to 44% of small businesses in Colorado are owned by women. And then nationally, it says that women over 40 are starting more businesses. And so when we're talking about what was the change for me, it was ageism. So I did something about it. I decided I'm gonna help other women. And so that's where SecondAct Women came about. We host career events, events to elevate our mental health. If we can't get a job and we are caretaking for our kids, for our parents, for ourselves, and a lot of times we're not putting that oxygen mask on first. If we're not able to do that because we can't have a job in the workplace, that's detrimental. And I myself, have experienced the caregiving side. And if I can say one thing, how blessed I am that where I am today, even in this new career, and where I have been since 14 working, and the human that I am today is a testament to the mom that I am caring for today, who in 2023 had a stroke, and we had to sell our childhood home of 50 years. But there's hope. I do this because there's still women who needs to be advocated for. And here's the thing. 1 in 3 people in America today, guess how old they are? 50. And the US, UK, and Australia, in that order, are all at the forefront of helping of working to eradicate ageism. It's gotten better, but the fight will continue. We need for the world to understand our value. We need to be hired. My future is brighter than ever before, and so are the women who are 40, 50, 60 plus, and I'm fighting for that. If there's one thing I can tell anybody who's watching this who needs to hear it, and they are over 40, 50, 60 plus, You can. Don't let anybody, and this is the biggest cliche, but at 58, I finally get it. Don't let anybody tell you you are less than. Don't let anybody tell you you're too old. Don't let anybody tell you that you can't do what the thing is you want to do. You want to do. Do it. And I will tell you, you will have a community behind you. Not just my community of SecondAct Women, but if you surround yourself around the right people, you will have women who are there with you, lifting you up. Because today, in my world, and I'm a Gen Xer, there's no crabs in a barrel pulling each other down. Heck no. We are there, women in particular, we are there for each other, more than I've ever seen in my entire life. You will have others who are there to lift you up because you are worth more than you ever know, not even in the experience, the wisdom, what you bring to the table on the job, but also what you bring in life. You have reared kids or not. You have done things or not, because it's choice. But you have to remember that you can and you will, and we will all watch you, and we will lift you and be there for you. You can do it.
She's motivating Colorado women to reach for more, and you can join Barbara. She and over 100 women navigating career shifts and building businesses will be at Biz Life Con this Friday and Saturday. It's a weekend of workshops, resources, and connections held at Comedy Works Denver Tech Club. And there you can explore strategies to advance your career, grow your business, and break age barriers. Learn more at secondactwomen.com. When the San Antonio Spurs suffered a heartbreaking loss in the 2013 NBA Finals, head coach Coach Popovich, himself a graduate of the Air Force Academy, turned to his roots for inspiration. We sit down with Rob Devall, retired U.S. Air Force officer and director of military affairs for the Aurora Chamber of Commerce, as he shares the untold story and never-before-seen video of the Spurs' visit to the Air Force Academy and the profound impact it had on the players and coaches.
Rob Devall. Currently, I'm the Director of Military Affairs at the Aurora Chamber of Commerce. I was born here. My dad was stationed at Lowry, born at Fitzsimmons. Then I ended up joining the family business. I joined the Air Force at 28 years. 10 of them were here in Colorado, between the Air Force Academy and Buckley. So back in 2013, the San Antonio Spurs playing the Miami Heat. In Game 6, the Spurs were up. Towards the end of the game, though, regulation, Ray Allen hits a three, ties the game, goes to overtime. Spurs lose the game. Still goes to a Game 7, but they don't make it on Game 7. So Miami Heat wins, devastating loss for the Spurs. And so Coach Popovich, he is actually an Air Force Academy grad. And so because of the devastating loss, he wanted to bring a different perspective to training camp. So he worked his connections and he got training camp at the Air Force Academy. And so, you know, they're experiencing things, they're seeing the cadets, they're engaging with them, watching the parades, all the things, right? Just getting a taste for what Coach Pop went through when he was a cadet. But what they didn't know is one day they were just told to get on a bus.
Does everybody understand? Yes, sir.
And so this bus comes in to the base and then goes to this training area called Jack's Valley. That's kind of the field training area at the Air Force Academy. And he gets off the bus and we kind of arranged some things to occur.
Let's go, we going right now. Yeah.
I mean, you're talking Tim Duncan, Manu Ginobili, Tony Parker. You got a lot of folks on there. And so kind of tell them a couple things, have them fall off the bus, get them in formation, teach them a position of attention. And so I couldn't hold it in much longer after that. I started laughing because I was like, these guys make a lot of money listening to everything I was saying. And so it kind of broke down because I think we went far enough. I kind of explained what we were going to do that day. And then we put a GoPro on Boris Diaw. He was one of the new players, a French. And so him and Tony Parker kind of had a connection to kind of document going through. So the first guy to go was actually Tim Duncan. He stepped up, said, I'll go first. So go through the course, and that happens. So it's a great story, right? Because team building, doing something that they don't usually do, kind of build morale and get out of the gym. Well, they go through, and that's a cool story, right? But for me, I think the coolest story out of all this is after the players were done, a few of the coaches want to go through. So coaches are running through, they get to the last obstacle. Last obstacle is this one where you're over water, and it's that rope that goes across, and you kind of go backwards across the water. Well, he asks one of the guys that worked with us to demonstrate. And so he gets on, and he starts going through, and not even, 5 feet into the obstacle, his cell phone falls out and goes in the water.
Oh, the phone!
And, all of us from our team and the players, we're hanging out, and we see it, and we start cracking up. For some reason, that was the reaction everybody had. Just thought it was funny. And Thompson, that was the guy, he said, that's why you got insurance on your phone, and he kept going, right? While all that was happening, Coach Popovich, and he'd probably kill me to tell this story because he's just a real humble guy. But I think he deserves his flowers on this one because he is a great leader. He starts walking slowly around, unassuming, asks Devall about where the phone is. He's like, oh, it's in there, don't worry about it. Okay, and so goes on and then gets in the water. Starts fishing in the water. Look for this guy's phone. Well, everyone is kind of joking, laughing, having a good time. Coach Pop had his head on straight, doing what servant leaders do, and took action to do the right thing. I wasn't even paid attention at the time. Until it was after I started rewatching the tapes that I saw, that occurred. So huge leadership lesson. That sort of thing is kind of what that place is about. The tagline is building leaders of character. It's great for the military, but there's a lot of people that get out and go do great things as well. And that character is the thing that sticks. There's so many stories, not just folks that were in the military, the young men and women that serve today. Stories of courage, stories of leadership, stories of adversity, and getting through it. But Colorado's got so much for that.
Also, an update on Coach Popovich's health. He was in the hospital after a medical incident last Tuesday night, but he is home now and doing well. Our thanks to Rob Devall for sharing this story, video, and photos that brought it to life. We end our show today with the 12th season of Sounds on 29th, filmed at Ophelia's Electric Soapbox, with a band that's no stranger to using music as a force for change, Denver's own Flobots. I'm Bazi Kanani. Be sure to tune in next week for more from Studio 12.
Y'all ready for a show? Warriors, we remain true. We can sway soldiers and we can break through. We can slay ogres and we can wake you. We can slay ogres and we can wake you. Together we shine. Remain warriors and we remain true. Together we shine. Can slay soldiers and we can break through. So wake up, we can not stand by. They say we're headed for hate. We can slay God can't lie. Hands high. Together we shine. Together we shine. Think of my folks together divine. The line. Here is my hope, this is the sign. Making the justice, rush quick. If we struggle, we shall have justice. Shoulder to shoulder, remain cold. Everyone singing the same song. Raising our voice for the love of a mother, reminding the soul that we stand strong. And we gon' be alright. Don't be no neon lights. No, we believe we have reached the show. Deep beneath these ages zone. We just reach the future home. To be released, here in the street. We pledge to a flag yet to unfurl. We are building up a new world. Colorado, we need to celebrate the fact that we are here, that we are thinking, and nothing can stop our ability to love one another. Hands up, yeah! Seventh proposal, we think we are preaching cancer, cancer. Not telling the truth, just speaking in secrets, mantras, anthems. What's wrong with the music? I can't let them see it. Phantoms, phantoms. Singing songs so long, no, I do not believe in the Just paint Rushmore in blackface with a B&B and Bazi. Everybody's at the Maverick. Getting on for that wounded knee, cause heroes need no backspace. From the cross to the lynching tree,
auction to penitentiary,
Bobby shop to the symphony.
We are here.
No enemies, we are here. No enemies, we are here. It was meant to be
like it's high noon,
and we're facing our fears
like a centerpiece of a typhoon.
And we're still in the battle.
Still in the battle.
We remain warriors.
We remain true.
We can sway soldiers.
We can break through.
We can slay ogres.
We can wake you. Together we shine.
We remain warriors and we remain true.
Together we shine.
We can slay soldiers and we can break through.
Together we shine.
We can slay ogres and we can wake you.
Together we shine.
Together we climb.
Together we strive.
Together we rise.
Divided we fall. I can ride my bike with no handlebars. No handlebars. No handlebars. Look at me, hands in the air like it's good to be alive. And I'm a famous rapper, even when the past rock crookedy. I can show you how to do-si-do. I can show you how to scratch a record. I can take apart the remote control, and I can almost put it back together. I can tie dye in a cherry sip. I can tell you about Leif Erikson. I know all the words to Decode Colorado, and I'm proud to be an American. Me and my friend saw platypus. Me and my friend made a comic book, and guess how long it took? I can't do anything that I want, cause look, I can keep rhythm with no metronome. No metronome, no metronome. And I can see your face on the telephone, on the telephone, on the telephone. Look at me, just called to say that it's good to be alive in such a small world. I'm all curled up to a book to read. I can make money, open up a thrift store. I can make a living of a magazine. I can design an engine 64 miles to a gallon of gasoline. I can make 2 antibiotics. I can make computers survive aquatic conditions. I know how to run the business. I can make you one of my product. Movers, shakers, and producers. Me and my friends understand the future. I see the strength to control the system. I can do anything with no resistance, cause I can see in nature with the microphone. With the microphone. With the microphone. And I can split the atoms of a molecule. Of a molecule. Of a molecule. Wait a second, y'all. So here's the thing. We wrote that song 15 years ago, more than that. And at the time, we wanted to share this knowledge that these gifts, these tools of ours could be corrupted, could be transformed, could be made into destructive items. But 15 years later, that feels all too easy to say. I think we all know that, don't we? I think we know how destructiveness can be. So I feel like it's time to go further. Y'all feel me? I feel like we need to take it to the next level. Let me tell you this. Look at me, look at you, surrounded by polarization. Does it feel so good to be alive? Your reach is global. Your message is loud and clear. Your cause is noble. You're here. You can flood these streets with demonstrations, overthrow with administration, breathe new life in a generation, save us all from this integration. Rediscover how to speak your language, heal the blockage of the streets are dangerous, change the virus so it's not contagious, make liars unlock the cages. You can build alternatives to prison doors. You can find forgiveness for yourself when there's no risen Lord. You can channel power from a different source. You can bring us all back from the brink and stop the civil war with the killer force. And you can save the planet from a holocaust. From a holocaust, from a holocaust. Yes, you can save the planet from a holocaust, from a holocaust. I can ride my bike with no handlebars, no handlebars, no handlebars. I can ride my bike with no handlebars, no handlebars, no handlebars. So let's save it. How they tossed the dice. It had to be simpler back in the day when our folks were pretty certain they could find something. One now, none of it's a sign. We just want a day when the devil blinded up. Look at your number but wonder if I should call you up. Or a message I'm in a mess with text that doesn't belong to me. But it would ease my mind to know what the songs I'm singing are in a key that you can comprehend. Into with the thoughts you're pondering. If so, we can both stop wondering if men be together like Donner and Blitzen. But already it came to time. It's like hi, when you came in, became alive. It's like everything else was a glimpse of you. Give a hint to clues of where your name resides. Now that I'm down to a strange divide, tell them do all the blame, fear, pain, and pride. No matter who calls and events to die. Get a message, say we're staying aside. Cause I imagine you and me can make music beautifully. To make moves, never lose the beat. I can imagine the food that we choose to eat. I see it all like a view from a movie scene. And imagine you and me never knew the we, but never more than a few degrees. How good of a food to be. But the waiting is over, I'll fight it down. Loving nobody but you. For all my for we to be. Toss the dice, eventually the snake eyes fell a tragedy, and I released unhappily. This magic now a fantasy. There's another one for me than you, and some other one for you than me, and that's the way it has to be. An uncompleted masterpiece, the leader campus atrophy. Cut by another after me, a silent wound who lives confess. Love lost under love's duress, a curse confessing, hoping then but first the blessing. Emptiness, this hollow hole won't coalesce. Regret smoke from holy chest, as less remote emotions pull from cavities, growing depths. I have it easy knowing this. Together we will never fit. Try rather.